The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
6 minutes after 12, fast am I. Good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. We're talking tourism today, or specifically Visit Isle of Man, which sits inside Department for Enterprise alongside Finance Isle of Man, Digital Isle of Man and Business Isle of Man. So exactly what is it that Visit Isle of Man is aiming to do? Does it equate in any way to the old tourist board? How are we getting on? Well, the expectations for the visitor economy, the then Minister for Enterprise, Dr. Allison, said was 500,000 visitors a year, £620 average spend per visitor, and 5,000 visitor economy jobs. So anyway, fast am I. Good afternoon. We've got the Chair and CEO of Visit Isle of Man, Ranald, Caldwell and Deborah Heather are here today. Fast am I. Good afternoon.
Good morning, Andy.
Good to talk to you. Well, if you want to get in touch with Deborah or Ranald, by all means call 66 13 68, text 166 177, WhatsApp 166 177, email studio@manxradio.com. We're talking broadly about tourism today, but Deborah, Heather, so does Visit Isle of Man equate to the old tourism department at all?
I'm relatively new to the role. I joined about 6 months ago, but yes, in principle, it's the same activity as the traditional tourist board model, but this is much more like a private-public partnership. The idea is that we should be enabling the industry and working with the sector a lot more closely than the old school tourist boards used to do.
How does that manifest itself on a day-to-day basis?
In the most part, since I joined, in the most part, it's really delivering the strategy that was pre-agreed with the board. I was on the board as a volunteer before I took the role. Really on a day-to-day basis, and we're trying to sell to visitors, but we're also trying to enable the industry to work together, to support each other. So, we've got a coached company in. We don't end up with 4 coaches at the Sound. We end up sharing them out amongst the attractions. We coordinate with the accommodation providers, and our job is really to attract the visitors, but also then to support the industry.
Okay, and Ranald, Caldwell, what drew you to the role? What excited you about it?
I'd lived in the Isle of Man for about 15 years before I accepted the role, and I've been in the role now for 5 years. And with it's about bringing and selling the Isle of Man, which I've done for 20 years in the finance sector, and explaining the good and the bad that we face. And certainly, as far as I'm concerned, it's a place that I hold dear, and I want to share it with others. I have experience working in the UK, outside of finance, in the UK walking industry, so it was a natural extension to try and start to offer that facility or proposition to UK people holidaying in the Isle of Man.
Okay, and how do you see the trajectory at the moment? Where are we on the path, on the journey?
Right, in terms of 2022 and building on 2022's performance, we delivered 275,000 visitors, or should I say the economy did, which was 88% of what we'd done pre-COVID. This year we're tracking to deliver 307,000 visitors, which is about a 10% increase. It would have been higher if we hadn't had some of the challenges around air, etc. But things are looking very positive. We're certainly looking at increased visitor attractions, visitor spend, and there's more and more inquiries coming through, and Deborah's done a fantastic job in raising the profile of the Isle of Man in terms of who we are, what we have to offer, and how to get here. So it's fair to say, Deborah, that we've probably had more of a profile in the 6 months of this year than the 5 years previous.
Is it fair to say that COVID trampled on everything? COVID strangled everything, didn't it?
It did. I think what I have to do is to thank government for the support it provided to certainly the accommodation sector to keep it alive and ready for action when the doors or the borders reopened. So
I remember the then Treasury Minister, Mr. Cannon, saying that, and he talked about the architecture, the infrastructure of tourism. He wanted to keep that intact. What did he mean by that?
just for our interpretation of that certainly was to keep the accommodation very much in place. Certainly if you lose a large hotel, it's very difficult to get a large hotel to build something within 5 years. And it's fair to say, of all the accommodation stock that we had, whilst it was difficult times for all, I think we only lost one particular small bed and breakfast in that time. So the majority of the accommodation was kept intact, which then enabled us to support reopening with some vigour.
OK, let's go to the phones, and Julian's with us. Juan, first of all. Hi, Juan, you're live with Ranald, Caldwell and Deborah Heather from Visit Isle of Man.
Afternoon, Andy. Good afternoon, Heather and Ranald. I had a brief conversation with you at your presentation at the government conference, and the video that you showed, and I was quite interested in the stats and the spend per head that you were delivering at the conference. My thing is, on one point, when I was in business, I was always taught to keep your shop window clean, nice and tidy, and make your store interesting inside. And it seems to be that the island's looking very tired. And I accept that you're doing very good with promotions. It's nice to see the horse trams full in October going along the promenade. But I get a bit of feedback from people. I've got an affinity with tourism, always have done. And you get feedback from people that say things look tired. And just for example, I mean, beside the Charles Gard video, which I'm sure Andy will touch on with you, there's things that I mentioned 6 months ago on here. The grass growing out of the sand on Douglas Promenade. There's railings that have been hanging off on the promenade all season, just being left hanging off. I mentioned the walkway going to the museum of all places, the globes on the walkway, just a soft washed on the globes to make them look presentable, just small stuff like that. And then we move on to the horse trams, not working on a day when you've got 1,000 or 2,000 people coming off a cruise ship. And I think there's some kind of disjointedness there with whoever you're trying to work with within the island to tidy the shop window up when you come here. And I think that's quite important if we're going to go down this route of trying to get more tourism back, to do that.
OK, all right, Deborah.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually a passion of Ranald's in the most part, but there's two parts to our role. As I mentioned, we've got to promote and attract visitors, but actually we should be a conduit to make sure that the island is presented as well as it can. Ranald's had this idea for a long time around visitor first, and we've actually come to the conclusion it should be something more like destination first, because obviously our residents are our day visitors on this island, and it's really important that they benefit from all of the things we wish for our visitors. So the idea is that we're setting up a committee actually with Charles Gard on board as well, but trying to get all of these sort of separate parts of the tourism offer, the visitor economy, to work together to really improve what we're offering. I think we've had some successes. They're limited this year, but we've certainly done the cruise ships a lot better, not by any means saying that they're perfect, but we know what we need to do during the winter, and we know what our next steps are to drive this forward.
Ranald Caldwell. So Visit Isle of Man can't be responsible for everything. If Douglas City Council decides not to renew the railings, it's kind of tying your ankles together, because you can't do anything about that.
I wouldn't agree with that. I think we're very much the voice of the customer or the voice of the visitor. So it's about identifying those issues that aren't working. And we have at officer level across most departments in government, a representation on a visitor first forum that highlights these issues. And we will raise those issues and take actions as appropriate. In terms of my own view on it, I think we have to restore and have a pride in our island, and that I've issued the statement a number of times, both to politicians and to civil servants, that we shouldn't walk past something that needs to be addressed. We were faced at the beginning of the year with an issue at the airport where there wasn't enough trolleys to take bags off the terminal, so we had to step in and partly fund those. So I think we need to elevate visitor first or resident first to executive level and political level, and we're in the process of doing that, and hopefully Charles Gard, I think he's agreed in principle, Deborah, will be involved in that, because I think Charles is very much our conscience and that third voice that comes along and said it's not good enough. So when you visitors arriving at your home, you get the best Egyptian cotton out, you get the china out. We have to do the same thing. It's first impressions which will lead to a repeat buy.
Okay, Ewan?
Yeah, and it's just a pity, and I pick on what you're saying there, it's just a pity that it took something like Charles Gard Video to give a kick up the backside. I mean, that kind of should have been done before. It shouldn't have even been a video. It's rather to the point of it. And fair play to Charles for bringing it to people's attention. And I get what you were saying at the conference, that it's kind of not a 9 till 5 job. It's a passion job, and you've got to have an affinity to the island. And I think that's right. I think everyone who works in tourism, in hospitality, feels the same way. It's not a 9 till 5 job. And I'm just thinking, we've got now the government own the boats, if you will, or the people own the boats, I should say. Let's get it right. And I'm thinking, shoulder bookings, and why don't they? I mean, the money's made on the freight deck on the boat, so if they got more tourists on board at a very, very cheap price, say on the nighttime sailings, and done some kind of package here where they had the hotel working on the shoulder seasons, especially a theatre production, a show on in the villa, and done a package where everyone on the island is going to gain from it in work. I think that it's nice to see the cruise ships in, but I'm not sure on the pound per head spend when they come off, because if you're on a cruise ship, most of it's already paid for. But it would be nice to do some kind of package and get them boats filled. Now we've got a boat that's twice the size, and the spend on board would be even better then as well. And I think that might be an idea for the future, doing all-inclusive on the shoulder times.
Okay, Deborah?
Yeah, just to clarify on the cruise ship, so Cruise UK calculate in the UK it's £70 per person. So we've had 1.5 million from the cruise ships this year. I really think the retail businesses, especially in Douglas, have really benefited.
So that's £70 per head. Per visitor,
per person that comes ashore.
Right, okay.
So passenger that comes ashore. Of course, that doesn't include actually the cruise calculation, because the crew come ashore and do a lot of their purchasing of whatever they need during the working environment. I think I completely agree. I think there's so much more we can do in terms of packaging, so many opportunities in the low season. And I have to say that was one of my biggest motivations in terms of the role. I had been visiting the island as from a business perspective for about 8 years, and I just felt it had always underachieved in this area, that market penetration, that opportunity to get more visitors to this actually fantastic island. And I know we're critical of some of the housekeeping pieces, and that's fine, because we should try and improve that. But my husband and I are absolutely blown away by what this island has got to offer. It's a little piece of magic, and I think actually it's not a hard sell at the moment.
Okay, all right, thanks, Ewan.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Good to hear from you. There's a note in from Colin, who just said, we were away with a camper van last weekend to Brands Hatch, thousands of motorhomes, and we spoke to many owners, and all said that they reckon the Isle of Man is anti-motorhomes and they won't come here. Is that perception correct? Colin asks.
I don't believe it is. I know we've been working with DEFA in relation to coming up with a network of camper van locations in the Isle of Man. So we certainly would welcome them, and hopefully we can pull something together with DEFA, which is in plan at the moment, and then communicating it with the various caravan and camping clubs to say that you are welcome.
We're caught between on Mannin Line. We get caught between the camper van owners and the anti-camper van people. The antis say that they don't bring any money. They stay in their van and they cook in their van, and that's about it. The pro-camper factions say, yes, we do. We go out, we go to restaurants. So obviously, we're going to buy fuel and what have you. So, is there any data on that at all?
There's actually very little data, and as you say, we've got the disadvantage, obviously, from the UK, where they have to jump on. They've got a big vehicle to get on a boat, so it's always a bit of a problem. But with DEFA, as Ranald says, we're going to have an app ready next year, so they can book online and they can park up. I think some of the local issues, as far as I understand it, have been around parking on residential streets, and that. So there is a twofold side to this, and we've just got to be mindful of either argument, and it's an opportunity for us, and we'll work towards developing it.
Okay, Frank, you're live with Visit Isle of Man.
Hi, good afternoon, folks. Nice to hear you on the radio. I agree totally with your last, what was his name, Ewan?
Yes.
I agree with him. The island is very, very tired. and Douglas is a dirty city. There's no two ways about it. But that can all be done. It can all be done. Someone's got to get hold of the people that do that and tidy the place up and just make it look a bit more inviting, I would say. But what I want to say is something that I told the tourist board some years ago, but they never took really any notice of it, and I don't know why. In America, every child that goes to school in America is told about their history, and is told about the founder of America is a man called Miles Standish, who comes from the Isle of Man. Now, I spoke to a lot of Americans because I've been to America many, many times, and they're absolutely flabbergasted when they realize that their founder of America comes from this little island, the Isle of Man, and they still have relations here that's still alive. But to take that a stage further, the Americans take this very, very seriously. I'll tell you why. Because I went to Boston, and they've made a replica of the Mayflower, moored near Boston, and where the first people set foot on America, they've actually recreated the campsite down to every stick and stone as it was in 15 whatever it was. It's all actors that play the parts of all the people that came and created America. The actors live there 24/7. They live as they did in the 15th century. They talk Old English. And they're all the people that was on the Mayflower that came to America in the first place. And I went to the policeman, or the man, not the policeman, he was like a security man in the village, and I went to it, and I told him, I said, excuse me, can you tell me is Miles Standish here? Oh, he said, yes, sir, he's over in his cottage there, go and have a word with him. So I went across to the cottage, and this man was cooking a chicken on his stove for his lunch. And I said, excuse me, can I speak to Miles Standish? He said, yes, that's me, sir. I said, I've just come from the Isle of Man, your home. He was absolutely ecstatic. He knew every single thing about the Isle of Man. It was unbelievable. So why don't we advertise in America? If we did, you'd get hundreds of thousands of Americans wanting to come here because you know how the Americans feel about history and everything else.
Okay, all right, Frank. Ancestry tourism, I think we're talking about, Ranald?
Yes, we're seeing it as a growing trend. Certainly the genealogist, certainly from the American market, we're seeing more and more Americans coming across. There are many stories to be told of how Manxmen have impacted in the developing world. The Star of India, for example, in San Diego.
I mean, that is an absolute icon. I mean, everybody in San Diego loves the Star of India.
Or the Eureka, as it was when it left Ramsey. Yeah. So there's a story to be told, and we're looking at how we can bring that to life. We're actually working with a group of Manx singers who are going to the 160th anniversary. So there are many stories that need to be told, and we need to work with Manx National Heritage, and as Frank says, to tell that story, whether it be at the Peggy or whether it be in other areas. But certainly genealogies, we've actually brought the Blue Badge guide holders together with one of our local travel companies to see if they can actually put on packages to discover and find your ancestors. And I know there was the Jewish community came here in relation to the interment piece, and the blue plaque was opened, and there were some beautiful stories that were told about finding the old house that their grandmother had been born in and being invited in and spending the day with that person. So there's mileage to be had in remembering where you come from. Okay,
all right, that's great. Frank, thank you very much indeed. We'll all remember Miles Standish. And because there are many aspects and facets, certainly things that the Isle of Man has got about it that not many other places have, that this would appear to come down to marketing and advertising. And we used to be on television once upon a time. Deborah, any TV campaigns planned?
Not in the near future. I'll tell you for why. So there's a few things we have to solve first. We talked about shop window just before. We actually don't have our digital shop window in place. So when people are looking to buy or come to the Isle of Man, there's not a central place they can buy from. They're looking at people like booking.com. And that's actually actually depriving some of our operators on the island of profit. So we need to get our positioning right. We need somewhere that people can buy from that's very easy for them to get their booking in. The other thing is post-COVID, a lot of the airlines have had issues. They basically they dumped a load of stock that wasn't green because lots of countries were bringing in green levies around aeroplanes. So Boeings of this world have got something like a 7-year backlog of new planes to be built. So whilst the American market is supremely important to us, there's stuff we need to get right first and stuff the industry needs to get right. So we want to find a way for our visitors to buy from us directly or with minimum commissions, so it doesn't impact on our local businesses so much.
Who would do that?
Well, it kind of falls to us. We've got a unique opportunity because it's an island. You've got a unique opportunity to take the stock and do what you can for them. In most circumstances, you wouldn't get Visit England or Visit Scotland or other places doing that because they're the diversity and the amount of stock they're talking about. Whereas actually we're quite small, quite specialised. So we have an opportunity to do it. So we're working on a project right now to try and bring that together. And it will include routes to market that will take us to the States. So there's something called the Global Distribution System that runs the airline side of things. If we can get our accommodation stock on that, which some hotels do now, but it's only really the big ones. If we can get that, then it gives us a much broader appeal to get to that American market.
Geographically, do we know who our market is? Is it the northwest of England? Is it the Midlands? Is it Ireland, Scotland, anywhere around Europe, Australia? Do we know who likes to come here?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we do a passenger survey, which takes place every quarter. So we do get information about who's visited and from where. We also use Ranald's just showing me the figures here for anybody that's watching us on the television. But actually, in the most part, it is the UK. Obviously, there's easy routes to get here. We know TT brings people from all over the world. But actually, our opportunity to get from the northwest in the first place is the lowest hanging fruit, if I was seeing it like that. But we do have a worldwide appeal that we can go for as the years move on.
Okay, and the question in Ranald, you can handle this one then. So people often ask, what is the Isle of Man like? So are we, and everybody always talks about Snowdonia and the Lake District and posh North Yorkshire, if you like, Harrogate and what have you. Where do we sit? What's our appeal? What sort of person would you think would want to come here?
In terms of the motor enthusiasts, we've got the obvious motorcycling events. In terms of what we've got to offer people who want to come and walk, I think we've attracted about 20,000 walkers last year. We think we've got the propensity to increase that to about 65,000. Heritage and culture is very much up there, and we're working with Max National Heritage to see how we can develop that proposition and get it to the right audience. I think what Deborah was alluding to, a lot of our customers and clients, and that's why we've got a business development person full-time in the UK. Our travel agents are saying to us, we cannot sell what we cannot see. So it's bringing that visibility and getting that relevant proposition, whether it be cycling, walking, whatever it may be. Cycling, I've just referenced, is another large one that we're working on. Deborah has an announcement she'll make on that cycling front in a minute. So there are lots to do, and I think if I was to sum it up, it's anybody who is looking for a little taste of home but with an outdoor feel to it. The Isle of Man has got it in spades, and I think I always use the phrase that Ron Berry used, who is the director of the National Trust. He said, the Isle of Man have got it in spades, why would people not want to come?
Okay. A question in from Tim for Deborah Heather, and just says, could you ask Deborah at the moment, what advertising Visit Isle of Man doing? If we're not on television, where are we?
So we've focused on making a noise. My remit from the board was to make a noise, and actually we've had enormous success with our PR campaigns in the last year. So by June we had 256,000 reach. So reach is, if you look at when people were buying advertising in the past, they would think about readership and in your case listeners. Reach is exactly the same sort of thing, but obviously nowadays an article gets posted many times on social media, so we're not saying we've actually reached that many people, but that's the potential reach of the actual article. So we focused on bringing over journalists, and as I say, in June it was 250,000-ish. By the end of August we're at 2.8 billion, and I've just had the figures in today for now, and we're at 5.2 billion. So we're making an enormous amounts of noise to try and get people to understand what this island has. Advertising is less read in terms of magazines, so articles have been really, really important to us.
OK. It's 12:30. We're live with Visit Isle of Man Chair and CEO today. Ranald, Caldwell and Deborah Heather are here. And Julian, you're live with Visit Isle of Man.
Hi, Andy, and hello to your guests.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi. Just a quick one here. The research paper titled Gone with the Wind, the Impact of Wind Turbines on Tourism Demand from Leibniz University in Hanover found a strong negative effect on tourist accommodation when wind turbines were located within 6 miles or 10 kilometres of tourist accommodation. Considering the small scale of the Isle of Man, are you concerned about potential negative impacts on local tourism if wind farms are deployed here?
OK, Deborah?
This is obviously we've got a bigger question around sustainability and the biosphere on the Isle of Man. For me, the biosphere presents a real opportunity around conscious consumers, and obviously wind farms and energy. Energy is an issue everywhere, and obviously we're seeing wind farms all over the UK as well. It's contentious. I think it does put some people off, but we do have to think about the wider contradictions when you think about sustainability and biosphere. I think we have to see where the research goes, and we have to understand the impacts in the areas they're thinking about putting it, and as you say, the reach of those areas, Julian, because obviously you can see a long way on this island, which is a great bonus. It's too early to say exactly, but we will be considering that as part of tourism's response.
Ranald, Caldwell?
I think the comfort I take is from some of the research findings, certainly coming out of Scotland, and the potential effect of wind turbines on tourism. Whilst there's some anecdotal comments to suggest it does impact, the research coming through from about 3,000 of an audience suggests that there's not, and people will still come. Interesting to see Shetland of 103 turbines now just completed this month in the middle of Shetland, and they're saying they have to accept it, but it's not really impacting tourism. So it's a watching brief for us, and energy security is key, and we have to look at all options. And it was good to hear the Chief in a statement of yesterday saying that we're still carrying out those discussions with other operators like Ørsted and Krogha to see what other energy solutions there may be. Okay.
Any final word, Julian?
Just to ask the opinion of the pair of you, if do you think that giving the Isle of Man national park status like the Lake District would actually benefit tourism on the island?
Deborah, Heather?
It would certainly help us in terms of articulating what the offer is, because our latest passenger survey said 59.4% of people came and did something in nature when they travelled to the island. So yes, Julian, for me, it would help us in how we promote the island. OK, all right, thanks, Julian.
Just going back to the biosphere, fairly unique being, an entire jurisdiction being a biosphere. Does that play any part in the offering?
It should do, but if I'm honest, Andy, it's not as embedded as it should be, and that will be one of our projects for the next year. And I don't mean to criticise what the biosphere is doing. I just mean within the industry, we need to make sure our UK visitors can't come and say, well, we didn't know where to recycle that. When it's part of their everyday experience, we have to really embed that in the industry and the sector. OK, we're live with Visit Isle of Man through till 1 o'clock today. If you want to get in touch, text, call, email or WhatsApp.
Business owners, if you're looking to get involved in a great local cause, then find out about the Queen's Pier Restoration Trust. Opportunities include helping out and discovery days for staff, along with sponsorship opportunities to help with the restoration. Call Graham on 355 104 to discuss the corporate support options available to keep this historic Manx landmark for future generations. Call Graham today on 355 104. This audio has been kindly sponsored by Paul Carey & Sons.
Are you concerned about your eye health? Holmes & Davidson Opticians in Douglas are proud to offer the Eidon Ultra-Wide Field Retinal Imaging and Heidelberg 4D OCT systems, state-of-the-art machines that allow early detection and management of eye diseases. Don't wait. Book your appointment today and ensure the health of your eyes with the best technology available. Call 676 230 or visit holmesanddavidsonopticians.co.uk now.
It's a tough time for businesses. Not sure what to do to turn things around? Let Nicola Bowker & Co. guide you through. We've helped hundreds of businesses to success. Accountants and tax advisors to businesses on the Isle of Man.
Whether you like live music, theatre, film, or running around in circles pretending to be a superhero, you'll love Villa Gaiety. With Dragon's Castle Play Area, Broadway Cinema, Gaiety Theatre and the Villa Marina. Check out the upcoming events at villagaiety.com or call 600 555. Villa Gaiety, the island's premier entertainment venue.
Optionay is on its way, and all next week on Manx Radio, you could be a winner as we play The Devil is in the Detail. All you have to do is go to manxradio.com and work out our devil in disguise. There'll be a different one each day, and at the end of the week, we'll give away a Optionay hamper from ShopRite, crammed full of spooktacular goodies, just in time for the 31st of October. The Devil is in the Detail. All next week here on Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
And Visit Isle of Man today. Stephen, hello, you're live with Visit Isle of Man.
Hello, Visit Isle of Man. Hello, Andy, and hello, listeners. If I can make some observations firstly, and then you could reply to them, I think would be better for me. Firstly, has the budget increased of what you're given in order to both advertise the island and improve what we've got on offer? That's the first point. And secondly, it's been identified by a government survey that there's a lack of nightlife and entertainment in the evening. Now, that for both for young people, the general population, and in turn our visitors. So who will administer that? Is it just nice words, or are we going to get some results from that and money to spend? Because I speak to people and they say it's the nightlife is very dull. So that's the first point. Secondly, are you concerned about the coming report on the railways? Because let's be honest, our main attraction, I would think, really is our heritage sites and our heritage railways and the Great Walks. So that's another point I'd like you to consider. And finally, if we are to increase our numbers visiting the island, should the steam packet keep the Ben Macree? Because it's paid for, so there's no cost there. In the past, when we had more people visiting, we did lay-up vessels, and the Ben Macree is bought, so it would enable us to attract people from different jurisdictions, Ireland, etc., England. So I do think that unless we are prepared to make concrete proposals on these lines, I'm going to going nowhere, because the steam packet company is in its comfort zone if it just wants to increase the numbers on its main rotation to Douglas. So I'd like to know what you think about these points, please.
Ranald Caldwell.
Hi, Stephen. In terms of budget, yes, our budget has been increased. 2.5 million, and that includes staff costs as well. In terms of nightlife, certainly we would be in agreement that the hospitality industry is recovering, but it needs more support, and it needs more support with more visitors coming through. So it's not a surprise to see that finding coming out in terms of the vibrancy at night. In terms of the railway, Deborah and I had input into the railway survey, and certainly we see a clear role for it within our overall value proposition to consumers, and we will hopefully play an active role in actually making that more prominent in the UK with our key target audiences. In terms of the steam packet and developing new markets, an agreement with it. Certainly our research suggests that Ireland, the Irish market is key in terms of there's a greater propensity from the research of people in Ireland wanting to visit us than maybe in the UK. It's certainly a stopping off point for those American visitors coming through. I think the steam packet's view is that the Irish market maybe is not really showing that it's delivering the value to cover the costs. Now, whether when we get into the sea services agreement, we will then flush out whether or not they wish to continue to do that, or maybe there's a consideration of another ferry company wishing to step in to service that route. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, it would be very useful to develop the Irish market if we had a regular sailing to it.
Stephen?
Well, that's very pleasing to hear that, but I'm a bit concerned over your budget. When you take out the staff costs, I would suggest, not knowing how many people you have actually on the payroll, but it would appear to me that your budget isn't enough in order for you to do the job justice. So, for me, I think you need more money to get the results that we all need, not just you as the people working in it. It's what we on the island need, because after all, a better visitor economy will mean that the social life for everybody improves.
Deborah?
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree, Stephen, if you're going to argue that we need more money, because that will always be a bonus for us. But actually, the way we need to work in the short term, obviously there's enormous pressures on the government, on the economy. The way we need to work is cleverer. We need to consolidate with the railways. We need to consolidate with the steam packet and the other people that have marketing budget to help us use it more wisely, more effectively going forward. For me, there's a big commercial piece. I think, as Ranald said, the railways are really important to us, but actually they need slightly more commercialisation from the visitors. You wouldn't get on the Northern Bell for less than £75, or I'm not saying that should be our price point, but we do need to think about how these things are promoted, what's the audience. To your point about nightlife, one of the key things I really want to focus on in this next year is food tourism. I think food tourism is a real opportunity for us. It's a big part of any broader experience of a destination. So yeah, we're singing off the same hymn sheet, Stephen.
Okay, thanks, Stephen.
Thank you.
Good to hear from you. I just want to bottom this out, Ranald and Deborah, regarding Visit Isle of Man's position in that, we take entirely the point that you're not responsible for other people's conduct and what other people do. Is there any sanction that you have? Does your minister have any sanction in saying, Visit Isle of Man think that, certain things should be smartened up, certain things should be done, something needs to be painted, something, does the minister take forward your case? Because obviously you must have a view if things do look a bit dingy.
We clearly have a mandate through the Minister to recommend changes, either initiatives or policy to improve the standards of the Isle of Man, and we will continue to be that voice. Sometimes it isn't always accepted as it should, but we will continue to echo our thoughts and those of the industry in terms of making change.
And what's Visit Isle of Man's policy? If members of the public want to get in touch and say, look, I think this is a good idea, or I think at the moment, just a completely mundane example is at the moment we're looking at public toilets on the Isle of Man, trying to find where, there are human need and there are basics part of civilization. Some are terrific, some are shocking, and obviously we live here, so we know them. If a visitor comes and goes to an awful public loo, we look silly. We don't look prim and proper, Ranald.
Absolutely. It's the second most reported thing to us after steam packet ticket pricing of the state of the toilets. We have been in dialogue with Minister Crickle, who agrees that they need to be looked at, and we need certainly a map of where they are and what condition they're in. So it is just not acceptable. In actual fact, we think there should be more toilets in certain areas to support the Radna Follion, etc., and car parking. So that is very much part of the overall mix and what the tourist actually experiences. And I would also add residents' experience as well, because, they're an early warning that something isn't right.
Okay. Nigel. Hi, Nigel. You're live with Deborah and Ranald from Visit Isle of Man.
Good afternoon to all three of you, and hi Deborah.
Hi,
it's Nigel Spelling from Albany Tours and Albany House.
Good to hear from you.
And you too. I just want to touch a couple of points, one which Frank brought up, but one that we spoke to when I invited you to Albany House when you first started, just to give you an insight on how Nikki and myself run our operation, the tours and the B&B, and how passionate we are, for, as you well know, for hospitality and the Isle of Man in general. Married a good Manx woman, and she's taken on the market of this ancestral side hugely. The American market is massive. I can't tell you how big it is. My tour rates this year have gone up by 300%, purely because we've self-generated and we've funded ourselves to the American market. We're finding the Americans that come here only stay for one day or literally fly in and fly out. I ask the question why, and they say it's so difficult to find out where the Isle of Man is. Now, if we can send the cruise representatives to Fort Lauderdale to pick up the market of the cruise ships, which is exactly what they're doing, we can send a team out to America to obviously go to the conferences and really promote the Isle of Man. I do think that one of your problem is, and it grates me amazingly, that the TT budget that goes out every year and is focused just on TT should self-generate. It's been going 150 years. You were employed, and I'm grateful that you are employed, because I've read your CV, and you're a really focused person, and you're passionate for the Isle of Man, is the same as me and Nikki's, is that you should be given more budget and a more opportunity to focus exactly what you want to do. You're for the future, not for the past. The TT's already been here and always will be here. You need to look forward, and they need to fund you greatly if you want to get this tourist market up and running.
Deborah.
Now, the second point, the second point is to Ranald, is that same sort of thing, is that we, as professional tour operators and guides, go out and promote the Isle of Man amazingly, and we do a great job. And so do the people that run the hospitality industry through bed and breakfasts and hotels. I know it's a bad point, but 70 million over budget in a sea terminal across the other side is absolutely ridiculous. Our assets are here on the Isle of Man. We've got Peel Russian Abbey that's leaking. We've got Peel Castle that needs looking at. We've got Craig Niche's disgrace. And I'm not saying that badly. I go every week and I have to sort of tart up the bits and tell people, well, we're looking into it. That money over there should be given to your department, or some of that money should be given to your department if you're going to successfully put tourism back on the map. And I do appreciate what you're both doing, but I don't think you're funded enough.
Okay, Deborah, Heather?
Thanks, Nigel, and I'm really grateful for your support. I do see the American market as a huge opportunity. I'll just refer briefly back. That shop window where people can buy from us directly is really, really important. That's a key problem and a key... we worked through as a board developing, our ideas around what the issues were for us, and we called them crux issues. One was marketing, two was digitalisation, and the third one was seasonality. And I think we've heard all three come up today, so it's good. It's good that we seem to be on the same page as the industry. Thank you for your kind comments, and we are really, really focused on trying to drive this forward.
Okay, Ranald?
I think picking up Nigel's point to me in relation to, firstly, the sea terminal in Liverpool, I think it's vitally important that we do have a strong connection with Liverpool. It's disappointing, not only as the chair of the visit agency, but as a resident, that the budget certainly went beyond what it should have done. And there are lessons to be learnt there. And once again, the Chief Minister's statement yesterday quite clearly said we're getting a new team with a clear focus on delivery to certain standards. So we'll be held accountable for what we deliver and what we don't, I suppose, going forward. In terms of the Manx National Heritage assets, agree. I have a good working relationship with Connie Lovell, the Executive Director of Manx National Heritage, and she's looking for support in improving those assets for the Isle of Man. And she has come across some challenges, as you can imagine, with the likes of the Peggy Story, the Nautical Museum in Castletown. So we will continue to work with Manx National Heritage. And in terms of, I suppose, where you started it, Nigel, was do we have enough money to do what we have? I think it's important that we put in place the framework which we've done coming from the private sector and understanding the return on investment that we're getting from those investments, rather than just getting a wad of cash and just spending it. We need to see that return clearly being delivered on that bottom line, and then will give us the confidence to spend more. So it's about prioritising our spend, but certainly Sorry.
So I just to add, Nigel, and I'll announce it. First heard here. We're hosting the AGM for the British Guild of Travel Writers in February, which will be up to 150 travel writers on the island. I'm going to ask for yours and the other suppliers on the island support in showing the people the content, the what we've got as an offer on the island when they come over. The time of year is chosen by them, so not our best, but I know we can bring the island in if the weather's really bad. But we absolutely want you guys to support and sell to these journalists so we can make the most of next season as the consumer is going to buy next season as well. We're going to talk more about it just for everybody that is in the industry on the 13th of November, where we're having a destination day. So if you look out for the communication from my team.
Okay, and when is that?
13th of November.
13th of November, okay. All right, thanks, Nigel.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. They have spoken to me about the 13th of November, but I am going to put me in, and I've got a few ancestral videos that I want to slot into you. But I'm sure if that budget goes up, 1 million handed down to you out of the overspend wouldn't go amiss, and would put probably a good start into your budget.
Okay, all right, thanks for that. Now, just talk about investment, and everything at the moment is coming down to money. The Treasury Minister tells us that we're short, we're dipping into reserves and what have you, but tourism and marketing of our tourist assets is all about investment, and chicken and egg, really, the old build it and they will come on the Isle of Man. There was a fling at tourism in 1979 for Millennium Year, and it saw a big push then, but the overall perception, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the overall perception is that tourism declining on the Isle of Man? Is the interest in Visit Isle of Man, is that on the way down, or is because most people live here? We see the place, in the face every day. How is tourism going? How is Visit Isle of Man? I mentioned the trajectory earlier on. Is it an important part of our gross domestic product, Ranald?
I think it's a vital part of our wider economy. I sometimes describe it as a va-va-voom in terms of bringing in those people that wish to spend. Come and visit what we've got, keep the hospitality sector alive, visit our attractions and activities. In terms of GDP, if you just looked at the staff involved in the accommodation sector, you'd say it's about 1 to 1.5. I think the true GDP figure for tourism is about 5%. And I think when you look at the audience potential that we've got in our core markets, there's 11 people that fit our profile. We can't take them all at once. We're seeing the trajectory of growth, and it has been since 2018 when I came in, of about 3% growth per annum and growing to 5%. We're now back on that trajectory again, and with our increased awareness, with our increase in accommodation coming through and some of the exciting developments coming through in the Villiers site and others yet to be announced, I think tourism is looking quite bright for the Isle of Man. It's fair to say that when we were looking at what we intended to do strategically, and before we presented it to Tinwolf for sign-off last year, we actually got KPMG to confirm that potential was there, and our ability to get to it was clearly in reach. They confirmed that it was. Some said we were being under-optimistic. I think if you look at a comparative benchmark, Jersey have 750,000 tourists. Their target is 1 million. And I think having a confident view of where we're going to be in 8 to 9 years' time is actually an investment. It triggers investment opportunities. We're finding the airlines looking at us. The hotel investments are based on the number of tourists coming to the Isle of Man. So that being confident does attract investments, and it's not foolish. The potential is there, and we need to be very positive and go out and obtain it, rather than, I get sometimes that we're always very negative about things. I think we should take a step forward and join in that vote for Visit, because I think it will bring value to the economy.
Okay, a couple of quick ones now. This is in from John, who just said, could you ask Deborah Heather what she thinks of the efforts FC Isle of Man have made, and does that bring many visitors?
It has brought quite a lot of visitors, especially with the inclusion of Bury in the in their league.
They bring about 1,000,
800-ish, yeah. And obviously there's a regular visitor profile of people coming in, so we're looking to support them to try and develop that market. It's one of the things we do we have a scheme called TEDS where we help events on the island bring in visitors to boost our numbers, get people to know the island. So yeah, big supporter.
I mean, when you say you help, is that in terms of support, admin, money, underwriting?
Underwriting in the most part, but we're looking to develop it to support with marketing and things like that. It's under review by the board at the moment. But yeah, we normally have a 10-to-1 return on investment in terms of the visitor spend that we get through our TED scheme.
Okay, we've got 1 minute left. I worked in conference and event management for years and went over to over 100 FAMs, familiarisation trips around the world, alongside other travel agents and journalists. How many weekends do we do this as conference and event management companies can bring hundreds of thousands here? Do we have a future for conferences?
Yeah, no, definitely. So we've now got a business development manager in the UK looking for that business for us, hunting it down along with the travel trade. It's a key focus for us going forward. We haven't got the most enormous facilities, but actually they're kind of reflective of the amount of bed nights and things like that we've got. So yeah, it's huge. In fact, Richard Fletcher, who is on our board and is sort of the board member for events, him and I went to an event called Teams last year where we were trying to attract new sporting events. And actually on that note, just because we're going to run out of time, we have actually got the mountain bike trail funding, which you'll be hearing about shortly, and we're hoping we'll get lots of events there.
Okay, right, we are out of time, and today we've been live with Visit Isle of Man. So I'm going to ask you once again about the future, Ranald. Confident for the future, yes?
Very confident.
Okay, and Deborah, Heather, is the job what you thought it was going to be?
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I was obviously on the board as a volunteer, but the opportunity is huge. It's a eye-opener being part of the civil service. It's an education for me as a commercial operator, but I'm really enjoying it, and I think there's so much opportunity.
Well, thanks today to Deborah, Heather and Ranald Caldwell from Visit Isle of Man. If you want to follow up on anything that's been said, we've got an open line session tomorrow. Email manninline@manxradio.com or call the answer phone on 682-631. By the way, next Tuesday, the airport director, Gary Cobb, is going to be on. If you've got any questions for Gary Cobb, you can get those in too as well. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day.
WINT